Thank you for joining us for the April webinar of the National Center for Rural Road Safety entitled Planning for Spring Road Users. My name is Jamie Sullivan and I'm the Director for the National Center for Rural Road Safety. We're going to go through just a few quick webinar logistics for you. We'd like to thank our co-sponsor of today's webinar, the NL-TAPA Safety Working Group. Our webinar will be 1.5 hours in length. Closed captioning is available using the captions icon that you can see in the top right of the screen right now. Our webinar will be recorded and will be archived on our website at ruralsafetycenter.org/webinar-archive. If you do have any questions today, we would ask you to put those in the Q&A pod. This is a great way to get your questions to the presenters, as well as a way to alert our organizers of any technical difficulties you may be having. We do have an outstanding lineup of speakers today and more than typical. So we will not be taking questions in between the speakers. We'll wait until the end to see if we have enough time left. If we don't, we will ask your questions of our speakers after, and I will send the answers out to you via email. So again, please make sure you're putting those questions in as you come up with them. That will help us get them situated with the correct speaker at the time. We also have handouts that are available for download. You can find those in the handout pod. It is a PDF version of everyone's slides. At the end of today's webinar, we'd love to have you complete our feedback form. That will give us more information about the types of topics you'd like to see in the future. And then if you've joined us in the past, you know that we provide certificates of completion within 4 to 6 weeks of the webinar. We also provide an application for you if you need the more formal CEUs or PDHs for your licensure. Some new things with our CEUs and PDHs. Instead of a PDF form for you to fill out now, there is now a link in the email that you will fill out. You need to register once for the Montana State University system, and then after you have your registration with your name, username, and password, you can use that same one each time that you register for one of our new trainings, and that will make sure that everything is associated with that same username. The other thing is that they now are asking for you to please apply for these CEUs within 4 weeks of receiving the email from us. If you are unable to do that within 4 weeks, it may result in them not being able to provide CEUs to people. So just keep that in mind. All of that information, again, will be in the emails that we send along. I also want to make sure that everyone is aware that Safe Streets and Roads for All applications and the Notice of Funding Availability is now open. You can find it at this link in this QR code. Again, this presentation is available for you to download in the handouts. There also have been 3 recent webinars, one on planning grants, one on implementation grants, and one on the supplemental grants and demonstration projects. The recordings for 2 of those 3 are now up on their website. The other one was recorded yesterday, so should be up there shortly. So if you missed those, please take a look at them. I also wanted to let you know that NHTSA has released today a brand new report on resources to prevent impaired driving in rural areas. Again, there's a QR code as well as the web link here, and you can also get that in the downloaded information. As I mentioned, we have a full slate of experts here to share with us today. We are going to talk about how to work with your farm bureaus and an example from Pennsylvania. We are going to talk about raising awareness for slow-moving vehicles in agriculture with a case study from Maryland, how to do livestock involved traffic incidents and some things you should keep in mind from Nebraska, talk about safety for motorcycles and all-terrain vehicles from South Dakota, and we're going to wrap it up by talking about slow-moving vehicles again with agricultures and horse and buggies, talking about our Amish and Mennonite communities from New York. And I'm very excited to introduce our very first speaker, David Varner, who is the Media and Marketing Specialist at Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, where he plays a pivotal role in promoting the organization's initiatives and advocating for Pennsylvania's agricultural community. In his role, David works to amplify the voice of the state's farmers by creating impactful content, developing media campaigns, and managing the Bureau's social media presence. His efforts are aimed at building public awareness of the importance of agriculture, addressing policy issues, and fostering relationships with key stakeholders in the agricultural industry and beyond. And at this point, we're going to pass our presentation over to David.
How's it going, everybody? Like they said, my name is David Barner from the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. I hope everybody can see my screen here that I'm sharing. Um, so we're from the I'm from the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. We're located here in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, which is only about 5 minutes from our capital, Harrisburg. It's 78 degrees and sunny here, so it's a really nice day out. And myself personally, I'm from Lancaster County, and we're known for our Amish people and back roads. So I know rural roads quite well. You could say it like the back of my hand. But what I'm going to be talking to you guys today about is our Rural Road Safety Week campaign and what we here at the Farm Bureau do with it, how we promote safety on the roads. So our this year's Rural Road Safety Week was April 13th through the 19th, so it was just this past week. Um, and we do it around this time because it's springtime now, and this is when farmers start to really come out in force with planting, with their crops and so forth. So there's going to be a lot more of them out on the roads than it would say in the wintertime. Um, so, like I said, we promote the awareness to reduce accidents on our rural roads here in Pennsylvania. That's the main focus of our event here. And as you can see here, one of the pictures there on the side, that was our main state event today that we did. Our state organization always does a singular event during the week, but we have county farm bureaus that are sort of, if you want to think about it, underneath the state farm bureau because we are a grassroots organization. They hold their own events throughout the week whenever they happen to do them. And this all comes and impacts farmers, motorists, pedestrians, and everybody. It's not only to have their safety noted, but to also remind them to be safe when they're out on the roads. Um, some people that we include on this event, of course, ourselves, and then we have our PA State Police, our Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, our PennDOT, which is our Department of Transportation, and then a local farmer normally as well will come and speak. So that's kind of a rundown of how our event works. So then let's talk about why it matters. So obviously railroad safety matters because a significant number of traffic accidents, or excuse me, uh, a significant amount of rural roads are in Pennsylvania. It's actually over half of our roads in PA are rural by definition. So you can imagine that a lot of accidents may occur on these roads. A lot of risks involved are farm equipment, narrow lanes, blind curves, and even wildlife crossing unexpectedly. We do this so that way we can try to protect lives of both the farm families and our local communities and people as well. Um, and as you can see, this comes from one of our stats here, and it's honestly kind of a sobering stat that we got from our PennDOT in 2024. There was 104 crashes involving farm equipment on Pennsylvania roads in 2024. This resulted in 3 fatalities and 3 suspected serious injuries. In total, on rural roads, there was over 40,000 crashes in Pennsylvania, and this resulted in 576 fatalities. And this just, emphasizes the stress of why we need to all be safe on the roads. And we'll talk about more ways on how to be safe and why it's important later on in the presentation. But just wanted to start off with some of those facts so everybody can
David,
understand a little bit. Yep.
I'm sorry to cut in, but we're not seeing your slides advancing, so I just wanted to find a
Oh,
moment to stop
nice.
and see if we could try and get
Thanks.
that. Yep,
There we go.
perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the update. This is why we practiced before. Um, but yeah, you can see those stats again, like I was talking about and before. If you guys want to see that, that's our state event there on the right hand side. But yeah, there are those stats and why it's so important. Moving on, talking about some hazards on the roads. So biggest and foremost, slow moving vehicles such as tractors, combines, you name it, that are coming on and off the farm field. You can see on the right hand side there's one of those tractors. Technology has advanced over the years. Tractors aren't just a small piece of equipment anymore. Some of these take up the whole lane, and we've even seen some that take up both lanes, if not a little bit more. Um, so they're a very big thing to keep in mind when you're on these rural roads. We also obviously have mud and debris and other things on the road because, let's be honest, they're not always maintained as well as, say, your turnpikes or so on and so forth, because not as many people travel down these roads. And especially when weather goes into effect, so on and so forth, mud can get on the road, stones, rocks, what have you. Also, rural roads are very windy, narrow hills, narrow roads, hills, things like that. You got blind hills, blind turns, everything. One of the golden rules that I always say is if you can't see the other side of the road, you shouldn't be trying to do anything, too reckless or things like that, because you don't know what's coming at you at that time. And of course, like before, we talked about wildlife crossing, um, deer, squirrel, rabbits, what have you. They're coming out constantly. They don't obey traffic laws. They just start jumping out at you. And when it's nighttime, it's even harder to see. So that's why it's important to be maintaining speed appropriately and be watching out for deer crossing and other wildlife crossing signs. So that way you're more aware and more prepared. So we talked a little bit about farming equipment before on that last slide. So let's talk about slow moving vehicle signs, because farm vehicles are indeed slow moving vehicles. These signs are for speeds that go 25 or under. As you can see on the right hand side there, there's little red and orange triangles. They should be on the back of any slow moving vehicle to warn you that it's a slow moving vehicle. It's important to have them visible, clean, and correctly mounted on these vehicles. And that also way you can see them at night as well. You can see the difference between day and night on the right hand side. So some tips for motorists. Obviously slow down when approaching farm equipment. If you're, going 60 in a 25 or something, and you got a farm equipment in front of you, they're going slower, so that's going to catch up to you pretty quickly. So, just be prepared and slow down. Be patient. For a couple reasons, honestly. Farmers are what feeding America. So it's important to be patient with them, knowing that's how the people that are putting food on your table for your family and yourself. And then also that way you assume, or you can't assume the operator can see you or know what you're going to do next. So that is why it's very important to be patient. Um, and we want to talk about when is it safe to pass. Only pass when it's safe and it's legal to do so. It is technically in Pennsylvania not legal to pass equipment in a double line zone. So it's important to keep that in mind. And again, we're talking about those blind hills and turns. It's very unsafe. You don't know what's coming at you. You got a big tractor in front of you. It's just spelling for disaster. So just be patient and only pass when it, like I said, safe and legal to do so. Something else to keep in mind when we're talking about passing is watch for turn signals on the large equipment. These large equipment take very wide turns. So a lot of times people think that a piece of equipment is actually pulling off to let you over, when in reality they're actually making a wide turn, turning left. That tractor operator is midway through that left turn and you're already speeding past them, and now you're in a head-on collision. So again, that comes back to the being patient and making sure you know what's going on. A lot of our farmers, we talk to them at these events and they tell you, they try their best to, let people get around them, so on and so forth, because they know that everybody has jobs as well. They have places to be, so on and so forth. So just watch out for those turns, and be patient on the roads. Now, of course, it's not all just on the motorists. Farmers also have responsibilities as well. Like we talked about before, we need to have proper lighting, especially when it's nighttime, so that way it's visible for any farm equipment. And then those slow moving vehicle signs as well need to be on all equipment that's doing that 25 or under, so that way people know that the tractors are slow moving vehicles. Farmers are also need to stay alert and aware of other vehicles on the road, because it takes both of us. It's not just a one man thing. We all are in a part of this to stay safe. And we always ask farmers to have their equipment, road ready, good to go. That way it's not slinging debris at other cars, causing accidents or damage and so forth. So Um, Again, overarching theme, let's stay safe together. It's not just on the farmers, it's not just on the motorists, but it's on everybody. All right. So, what we try to do and encourage is engage with local schools, first responders, community groups, like we said about our different panelists from all different walks, whether it's PennDOT, state police, so on and so forth. Let's get everybody together to, promote this rural road safety and, road safety in general. Ways that we do this, we use social media, press release, and like I said earlier, local events as well. Um, so they're very important. That way the word gets out there and people can understand why it's so important, why farmers do things the way that they do, and why you should follow certain rules. So with that, I just encourage let's all work together to make these roads safe. Let's take those fatalities and crashes. Let's get them down. I'd love to say we can make it zero, but of course I'm a realist, so stuff happens. I understand that, but 40,000 or more in a year's time, is something that we seriously need to work on. Um, if you guys want to learn more about how we do rural road safety, you please go onto pfb.com and just search up rural road safety. It'll be on there. We also have our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We actually just posted a bunch about rural road safety. So if you go on there, you can kind of scroll through and see some of our events and some of our little facts as well. Also, something I'll add in, if you're not from Pennsylvania, every state has a farm bureau, and I'm almost certain they all have a rural road safety. So you can always reach out to them and see how they do it back in your own hometown, and work around it like that. But with that, I'll turn it back, and I thanks everybody for tuning in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. And it is a great reminder to make sure that you reach out to your farm bureaus. They're a fantastic resource and a great partner to have collaborate on all things safety. And I know that David spoke a lot about awareness for rural road safety. So I do want to also remind everyone that we do have Rural Road Safety Awareness Week nationally coming up. It's the third week of July. So it will be held the 14th through the 18th this year. And we will be focusing on post-crash care for this coming year. And we do have some emails coming out in the next couple weeks to share more information about that. Our next presenter is going to be Danielle Bauer-Ferris. She has served as the Executive Director for the Maryland Soybean Board since 2019. The board has identified rural road safety as a strategic priority, and through her role, Danielle has worked closely with the Maryland Highway Safety Office and other stakeholders to create resources and raise awareness about farm equipment and other slow-moving vehicles. Hailing from a grain farm in central Maryland, Danielle has a firsthand understanding of the challenges farmers face moving equipment on busy roads. And I'm very excited for her to show you some of the resources that they have available. We love using these ourselves. So Danielle.
Sorry, I'm having trouble sharing my screen again.
I'm going to ask Dana, can you pull up a backup too, just in case we need you to share it?
Let's see, is that working?
Yes, so we can still see the other ones on the left, but down at the very bottom, the one that worked for me is the one that looks like an open book. It's the second from the right.
How's that?
Great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the country. My name is Danielle, and I am the Executive Director for the Maryland Soybean Board. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you our rural road safety awareness efforts. So when we first started on this venture, we were asked why the Maryland Soybean Board, why are they concerned about transportation issues? The Maryland Soybean Board administers the soy checkoff within the state of Maryland. For those unfamiliar with checkoff programs, for every bushel of soybeans sold, a percentage of that market value is returned back to us. And then we reinvest those dollars in research, market development, and education to maximize the sustainability and profitability of Maryland soybean farmers. The farmer leaders who serve on our board recognize that the number of crashes involving farm vehicles was increasing, and then commissioned a study to better understand the causes of this issue. We completed the Rural Road Safety Report in 2019, evaluating crashes involving farm equipment on rural roadways. And this is small, but these are just a few findings from our report. The study found that most crashes between slow-moving vehicles and motor vehicles occurred during daylight hours and in good weather conditions. Rear end collisions were the leading cause of the crash, and with lack of attention was cited as 1/3 of the contributing factors of these crashes. We also found that it was interesting that a lot of the crashes were happening in areas that were experiencing urban sprawl, so they were really rural roads that is the communities outside of Baltimore and Washington, D.C. grew. They were seeing an increased number of traffic. So a number of recommendations surfaced from this report, which included encouraging the implementation of lighting and marking standards on all equipment to help decrease the risk of accidents, roadway design and improvement efforts that could mitigate problems through wider road lanes, roundabouts, wider shoulders, pullouts for slow-moving vehicles, etc. Increasing the use of fixed and mobile rural road signs that warn of tractors and other slow-moving vehicles. And then driver education can play a huge role in understanding the slow-moving vehicle emblem and developing proper driving procedures around slow-moving vehicles. So with those findings, we launched our Find Me Driving program in 2020. The first item of this campaign was a naming contest for our slow-moving vehicle emblem, which the previous speaker shared the importance of. So we had a naming contest. We received a number of different creative entries for our little slow-moving vehicle character, but Sam was selected as his name, which stood for slow down, assess your surroundings, and move with caution. So it was not only a good name for our mascot, but it had a message behind it as well. Using Sam as the center of our campaign, we built out a Where's Waldo style messaging, engaging with audiences to identify various types of slow-moving vehicles and where they may encounter them on the roadway. Sam has been included in all of our campaign materials, providing a great reminder for what to do when you see him and his importance to all drivers, as the campaign provides education for both farmers and everyday motorists. Let's see, so looking at our next slide, some of the education that we've done for the operators of the slow-moving vehicle has included in-person training events and resource creation. We share with them reminders to ensure that they're doing everything they can to be visible when they need to move equipment from field to field using public roads. We've held trainings for the farmers and their employees, developing at-home materials and sharing these messages wherever possible. So the next slide has an example of one of these videos. So this video is just a simple reminder that can be played, especially for a farm employee who may not be as familiar with moving equipment on the roadway, just to make sure, as we said earlier and the previous speaker said, the farmers are doing everything they can. Our largest supporter of this program has been the Maryland Highway Safety Office. So working with them, they actually included rural road safety in their strategic highway safety plan. So we've worked with them to address some of the challenges that we've seen through this partnership. We've been able to identify solutions that will reduce the number of crashes involving slow-moving vehicles and ultimately save lives of both farmers and other motorists. Our partnership with the Maryland Highway Safety Office focused primarily on motorist education and featured messaging encompassing all types of slow-moving vehicles. We've created a number of public safety messages to be distributed through various platforms to raise awareness about the unique needs of farm equipment and other slow-moving vehicles traveling Maryland's roads. So the billboards, they've actually been really popular with our farmers. They really appreciate those. In-person events, attending like teen driver events and really just spreading the word there. The yard signs were something, again, our farmers requested to put them along the rural roads that they are traveling to try to raise awareness. We recognized that the slow-moving vehicle emblem was actually not included in Maryland's driver's education curriculum previously, so we worked with the state of Maryland to develop a lesson that can be taught focused specifically on slow-moving vehicles, and then digital advertising. So we have videos. I'll show you an example on the next slide, but they've performed really well with audiences between 18 and 25, specifically male audiences. I always find it's interesting on YouTube, you know, after the first 5 seconds, you can click through to skip an ad. We're finding that the large majority of viewers are actually watching our full ad to completion. So that's encouraging that they find these videos engaging. So here's an example of one. So that's just one example. We were able to get out and get some actual footage of horse and buggies, farm equipment, construction equipment, all different slow-moving vehicles that we include in the campaign. We've continued to work with the Maryland Highway Safety Office, not only in our messaging, which they help to amplify, but also we've been able to open up a two-way communication with them between them and the farmers to address the issues that they are seeing on the road. So a lot of times as we've been out at events, we've heard farmers voice concerns about trees not being trimmed, guardrails being placed incorrectly. So we've been able to communicate those back and get them addressed, so the farmers are also more safe when they're traveling the roads. We've also partnered, this is just an example of other agricultural groups across the country who have used our resources. So I echo similar to what the last speaker said. Even if you are outside of our respective states, reach out to either your Farm Bureau or another agricultural organization, because I guarantee they recognize this as a priority. Not only has this program raised awareness about slow-moving vehicles on the roadway, but it's also allowed us as farmers to better connect with consumers. If you're interested in either our messaging or amplifying messaging similar in your state, the first place I would encourage you to visit would be our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, or X is Find Me Driving. We share messages that are applicable to rural communities all across the country throughout the year related to rural road safety. We have a number of resources on our website as well. So the videos that I shared today, as well as some of the other examples that I shared, are all available there, and they can be shared with other organizations or agencies. My contact information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out with any questions that you may have. And with that, I will turn it back over to Jamie.
Thank you so much. And I know I said no questions, but there is a really important one that came in. You talked about others being able to use all of the resources, the videos and such that you put in, but someone is wondering whether or not other states can use Sam himself.
So they can use Sam. They just need to reach out to us prior to doing so.
Perfect. And thank you for letting us know that. And then everyone, I did drop the Find Me Driving website as well as the YouTube into the chat pod for those who may be looking for it as well. So thank you so much. Our next presenter is going to be Megan Patton Nygren. She has been with the Nebraska's Local Technical Assistance Program since 2014. Her work at LTAP focuses on all things MUTCD and roadway safety. She is involved with the Nebraska Traffic Incident Management Program as a master trainer, member of the Nebraska Extension Disaster Education Network, and past chair of the Nebraska Livestock Emergency Response Program. At LTAP, she also produces the agency newsletter and assists with events as needed. Megan holds degrees in agricultural education and community and regional planning, both from the University of Nebraska. Megan and her family live on our farm with so many chickens, and you might find her sketching a quilt, taking a picture of something that inspires a quilt, or procuring quilting supplies while on the road. I'm really excited to pass along the presentation now to Megan.
All right. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'm excited to join this webinar today. What we call LERP in Nebraska, or the Livestock Emergency Response Plan program, is an interesting juxtaposition of my current professional life and my long history as a farmer, an ag producer, and educator here in Nebraska. So we've had LERP in Nebraska for 6 or 7 years now. We had done some things before the pandemic, but more so after. This is a derivative program. Originally, the first draft of this was put together by North Dakota State University with some help with some of the Iowa State University Vet College people. And it was funded by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. So it was really focused on beef or bovine. So that's BURP. When we brought the program to Nebraska, we wanted it to be livestock inclusive and actually animal inclusive. We have, while we are the beef state and one of the leading producers of beef and beef products in the United States, we do have lots of other livestock as well as a world-class zoo. So we've actually had some incidents since we've been tracking them through this project with transporting zoo animals. So our state patrol has on their bingo card housing tigers, in a hotel room during a blizzard that may not be on your State Patrol's bingo card. All right, so, let me click the right place to advance the slide, hopefully. There we go. All right, so for those of you who might be familiar with TIM, or Traffic Incident Management, it's a format that brings together first responders to work together to be more efficient in responding to roadway incidents. Our goal with LERP is to add some additional resources in those first responders' pockets for when they have an animal or livestock involved incident. Again, we want them to be as efficient as possible. We want them to use humane practices with handling those livestock or poultry or other animals, and be prepared for that type of response. In the full training, we have a series of modules that kind of work through the chronology of responding to an incident. Nebraska is a livestock state, as I mentioned. Our data is really old. This was actually the most current this week, still on our DOT website. So I know I've worked with our Office of Data and Cross Reports to try and get us some new numbers, but it is a significant number of responses by our first responders that interrupts, their lives as well as that livestock economy. Some more data. One of the things that we share are what that looks like from the public. Anytime we see an article on the news or a clip on social media, we have a lot of interesting response from the general public about how those animals are treated and what that perception is. We never want the perception that a bunch of cops are shooting at a bunch of cows. Obviously there are ways that we can be more humane in our treatment of that and safer for everyone involved, people, animals, bystanders, etc. So we use a lot of clips from formal news sites as well as TikTok videos to really kind of emphasize what kind of perception you want to be presenting to the world about how you and your agency respect the lives of livestock. Again, humane treatment's really important. Throughout the training, we work through a case study that is pretty common, unfortunately. So we have a semi-truck that's carrying livestock that's been involved in a collision on the highway. What happens? What do we know? What kind of information do we need to be able to respond to that crash? So one of those modules I showed you was about arrival and scene assessment. And one of the things that we share as a resource is kind of a checklist or an incident assessment that an agency can adopt to help them through the decision-making and communication process of that incident. One of the pieces that it's important for our first responders to understand is a lot of times the carrier who's transporting that livestock is not the owner. They're a contracted carrier, just like most of our cargo that moves on trucks across our country. And so there's extra players involved in that. Also, it varies a little bit depending on the market, but that livestock cargo is very valuable. There are single animals that are transported that have sold for millions of dollars. And so any decision that's made on the life or health of that animal is also a costly decision for that producer and their insurance company. I mentioned public perception. So here's a crash, not a Nebraska crash in the video, but we also have, some of ours too, of what people think about those. And we talk particularly about some of those public comments and, animal welfare, humane treatment is, of course, an important emphasis. We talk a little bit about terminology. You might call these cows. The one on the left is a cow. The ones on the right could grow up to that. At this point, they're feeder calves. So understanding that terminology and being able to communicate with the various parties involved using the correct terms helps us know how to respond to that situation. A truckload of feeder calves are going to behave a little bit differently than a truckload of old cows. The number of animals are going to be different. The risks of injury might be slightly different as well. Beef cows and dairy cows are different, and what some of those differences are. We have a lot of rural ranch land in Nebraska. Cows that live on the range, not so people friendly. They have a pretty wide circle of space that they need. Their personal bubbles are pretty big. Dairy cattle are used to being handled every day. You might be able to walk up to her and pat her on the shoulder, and she's going to be friendly, but not every cow is the same. We talk about different vehicle types. A trailer like this versus a semi truck like this, they have different points of access. They have different structural components that knowing where to cut if we need to get into that trailer or into that vehicle is pretty essential in maintaining some structural integrity to get those animals out of there and to keep responders safe as they're doing so. We try to have one or more kinds of trailers on site during the training so we can get in, explore, point things out, have that hands-on component. I mentioned the comfort zone or the bubble of those animals. Most of the livestock species are prey animals, so their initial instinct, if we have that fight or flight instinct, is going to be flight unless they're protecting a young in a lot of cases or feeling really cornered. So knowing where the point of balance is for that animal, as well as what their range of vision is. For example, cows' eyes are on the sides of their head, so they don't see straight in front of them particularly well. They see their peripheral vision is amazing because that's where their primary vision is. So thinking about where to approach those animals in a way not only to be safe as a responder, but also to nudge them to move in a desired direction is useful information and something that we can practice in a controlled environment. So having access to animals for the training is essential. And this is something that any first responder agency could do with a local producer, working through their local animal or livestock extension professionals to bring some animal, set up a training night with some animals to practice some of those types of things in a non-threatening way, to have some experience before they're on the road in that incident. Also, lots of producers have told me that rounding up a group of cattle in bunker gear is very different than how they do it in their day-to-day jobs, even if they are a livestock producer. We've got a couple of scenes of that. Again, having access to a trailer, this one happens to have been in a crash, so we were able to bring it, drop it over, and simulate that actual crash condition. You can see where those structural supports are here on the slide. One of the pieces we want agencies to leave this training with is an effort to prepare for that next incident. Like traffic incident management, a lot of the legwork needs to happen before we're at the scene of an incident. What are our agency standard operating procedures? Do we have procedures specific to livestock involved incidents or animal involved incidents? A piece of that is knowing what your state laws are regarding euthanasia of injured animals, knowing what safe and humane practices are for executing that if needed. And that's going to vary a little bit from state to state. We also really want you to develop some contacts and some relationships to have access to resources that you may need in a livestock incident that we don't typically consider as first responders. First and foremost, a relationship with one or more veterinarians. In some parts of the country, veterinarians are pretty hard to find. particularly those that have experience with large animals. And each state, through the state veterinarian, has a group of veterinarians that are engaged in mainly biosecurity and disease management issues, but a lot of those groups have jumped on board with this livestock incident response role as well, and are willing to be regional representatives to assist with those vet needed incidents that first response agencies might have. Knowing where to access some portable fence panels to be able to bring on site to contain animals that can't be in the trailer or have gotten out of the trailer that they were being hauled in. Knowing who those local livestock haulers are and who may be able to dispatch a vehicle on short notice. A tow truck operator that is able to and willing to handle a semi truck, particularly one that's been involved in a livestock crash. Semis that roll in livestock crashes tend to fall on their left side, and some other particulars that might be a little different from a standard panel truck. What are we going to do with these animals? Most producers can't accept them. It would be outside of their biosecurity plan. In my bio, you might have heard that we have so many chickens at our house. No new bird comes onto our farm without a minimum of 4 weeks of quarantine. So in an emergency situation, I can't handle a whole truckload of broilers in my quarantine process. A lot of times your local ag society or fair board does have facilities. Sale barns also have facilities and biosecurity plans that would allow the acceptance of those animals. Knowing who the state veterinarian is and who the contact from their office for your region is also pretty important. If you have a truck that has animals that might show signs of certain diseases, or if you have animals that are in a trailer that's sealed, a lot of livestock come into the United States for processing or for a stage of growth and development from Canada or Mexico. And a lot of times when they cross the border, those trailers are sealed and cannot be opened except at that point of delivery. So intersecting that at the midpoint and opening that trailer is actually a federal offense because of biosecurity laws we have to protect our local livestock herds. So your state veterinarian is a key to dealing with that extreme type of situation that really does happen. I know Jamie's holding questions until the end. If something happens to pop up, I'm happy to answer those. I'm also happy to help you find extension resources in your state that might be able to help you work with your local first responders and your transportation agency to put together a livestock emergency action plan for your region. Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you so much, Megan, for joining us and for providing all of those resources to everyone. I know when we first started talking, there was a lot of information that you shared that I had never thought of before either. So I hope that was really useful for everybody. I am going to put in, it sounds like maybe there are a few people that are having some audio issues. We're not hearing them on our side, so hoping that the recording will pick up fine. But I'm going to ask Dana to please drop the phone number into the chat pod, just in case there are others who may need it. Our next presenter is going to be Dustin Witt. He is the Highway Safety Engineer for the South Dakota Department of Transportation. Dustin has been with the department for 10 years. He spent his first 5 years with the department as the Highway Safety Planning Engineer, 2 years as the Project Delivery Engineer, and the last 3+ years at his current position. Dustin's duties include administering the roadway safety improvement portion of the STIP, setting safety policies and priorities, and a variety of safety analysis. Prior to his time with DOT, Dustin spent about 9 years with the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources as a project engineer. He graduated from the South Dakota School of Mines and Technologies, and I'm very excited to have him here today, as motorcycling is near and dear to my heart, and definitely a big safety concern in rural areas. So Dustin?
Thank you, Jamie. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
And the screen's up?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, Megan, I'm going to be visiting your world-class zoo in August, so maybe you could give me some tips on what the best areas are to go to.
The best shoes you have. It's a long trek.
Sounds good. Well, the theme of this webinar is springtime, and as you know, we get all those nice spring sounds, the birds chirping, children playing outside, and especially in this area, very loud motorcycles. Um, So here you can see these are kind of the trends we have for motorcycle fatalities and serious injuries. And just to kind of put this in perspective, we've gotten anywhere from 100 to 148 fatalities in a year. And we tend to get around 600, 650 serious injuries a year. So in certain years, a quarter or more of our fatalities are for motorcycles, and I'd say a peak of, closer to even a third of our serious injuries are from motorcycles. So this is a major issue here in South Dakota. About, I want to say it's about 7 years ago, I did a full network screening of what was our worst curves in the whole state, not just state system, but all 80,000 miles of our roads here in South Dakota. And actually, all three of the top worst locations were on the local system, not on the state highway system. And they're showing on the screen here right now. You can see on the left, Nemo Road. That is kind of it's about a 45-mile-an-hour curve, or it's not one you have to slow down too much, just to the left of this picture. And then all of a sudden, it goes to a very sharp 30-mile-an-hour curve. There's guardrail there, which is not a good thing for motorcycles. So this was our actual top location in the state for worst motorcycles. So we got together, as a state DOT, as a lot of you probably know, but maybe not everybody. A unique thing about state safety, federal safety dollars is we don't just focus on the state system. We put a lot of our emphasis on the local system as well. So all three of these are county roads that are on the screen here. Two of them actually are joint jurisdiction. That one on the left, Nemo Road, is Meade County and Pennington County. It splits right in the middle there. So we worked with both counties to get a construction project to flatten this curve, make it more even. And that goes just based on how federal safety dollars work. Those pay for 90% of the cost, and then the two counties split the other 10% of the cost. We've got this regraded to a 40-mile-an-hour curve throughout. We wanted to do a little better, but the house you can see there wasn't willing to give up as much right away as we'd hoped, which is understandable because that's very steep. But since that construction project was done a couple years ago, we haven't had a single crash here. We made it so the guardrail is no longer there. We flattened it out enough. So things are looking good there. The one in the middle there, as you're going north, it's a pretty steep downhill grade, and then that curve there, and this is also by the Harley Davidson shop in Rapid City, out in our Black Hills area. And it's just that combination of the downhill vertical grade and that horizontal curve there is a bad combination for motorcycles. We're flattening this out quite a bit. It's going to be a little flatter, not so steep, and then also that horizontal curve is going to go away. That's actually being constructed right now. So we're looking forward to what the data will show after that's done. And then finally, the one on the right there, this is just south of Sturgis, where the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally is. This had previously been a gravel road, then they paved it. Motorcycles didn't used to go there, now they do. Because of the steepness that you can't tell in this picture, the left side of the road goes down quite a ways, the right side of the road goes up quite a ways. And with the rock formations there, reconstruction wasn't considered a viable option. So what we did here was put a vehicle speed feedback sign on the south, because all of these are northbound motorcycles crashing. And then during the Sturgis Rally, the county would always put up a larger digital message sign warning people just for this entire route. And during the rally, we've now started putting one close to the curve to emphasize the hazard of this curve alone. It has really dropped things down. We've only had one serious crash, and it was actually a southbound car, whereas all the previous crashes had been northbound motorcycles. So things are looking good there, and I'll get a little more into those signs on the next slide here. So this is especially for local jurisdictions. This one was pretty exciting to me. We did a project out in the Black Hills, which again is where the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally is, and just in general, a lot of motorcycle travel. On 8 curves out there, and 2 of those are local curves, one of which is the one I just mentioned. But as you can see with these numbers here, I mean, across the board, the reduction in crashes is very significant. 34% in total reduction of crashes. And I guess just to clarify what we're doing here, this is, like say here, this is a 55 mile an hour road with a 40 mile an hour advisory curve speed. So if you're going over 40 miles an hour, it will alert you that you're going over the speed you should be going here. And then at the point if you're going 50 or more, it'll just tell you to slow down. But again, yeah, injury crashes have gone down by 35%. Small numbers, but fatal crashes have dropped by 2/3. And the really staggering one, it's a much bigger sample size, is motorcycle crashes have dropped by 55%. I don't know exactly why motorcycles are improving more than other vehicles on this, but obviously any motorcycle crash is usually pretty serious, so we're very excited to have that much of a drop. And I'm planning on getting some more of these out there in that Black Hills region, doing another project to get more of this out there. So I mentioned the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's the biggest motorcycle rally in the world. There's a number of things we do on that. One thing I want to mention is South Dakota Rides is a website and a program. It's operated by our Department of Public Safety, but we do partner with them. And what that website does is has a lot of information on routes, skill level needed to go on these popular motorcycle routes. And it's kind of meant to, in some of those cases, to discourage inexperienced riders from trying to push their limits on those. But they do a lot of other good things. They've got a motorcycle safety training at our Rapid City DOT grounds where they do the motorcycle certification there. And we're also working on getting to our largest city out on the east side of the state, Sioux Falls, our DOT grounds there. We're in the early stages of getting a area for them to do motorcycle safety training out there as well. That's not Sturgis Rally specific, but it's just a good program that our Department of Public Safety has. So for the motorcycle rally, South Dakota doesn't have a traffic operations center full time, but we do open up one for the Sturgis Rally. We partner with law enforcement, Department of Health, and some EMS officials to operate that, to try to respond to any emergencies or any major issues that we need to respond to quickly. During the rally, we put at certain intersections that aren't normally that busy some signals out. Otherwise, there would be gridlock and probably some unsafe maneuvers, so those are highly effective. Throughout the Black Hills, we put up digital message signs for a variety of reasons, whether it's rerouting motorcyclists from construction zones that they probably won't want to be going through, letting them know where there's major congestion, things like that. Before the rally, the DOT goes out and sweeps all state and local popular motorcycle routes just to get that debris off the ground, which obviously isn't good for motorcycles going through a curve. And then we also do it after any rain events that might happen during the rally. And then another thing that that Traffic Operations Center does is monitors the Interstate I-90 going through Sturgis there to see if either of the exits into Sturgis are backing up. And then if necessary, they can change the signals to make sure to get the traffic flowing into Sturgis, just to make sure that there's no risk of a backup and high-speed vehicles entering a kind of a pileup of motorcycles or other vehicles there. ATVs and UTVs, we don't have the numbers of crashes that we do of motorcycles, but this is becoming a more and more of an issue. As you can see that especially the fatality line is trending up. And I was actually just at a peer exchange of upper Midwest states in Wisconsin this week, and this is on everybody's radar that was there. It's a growing trend. These vehicles are starting to share the road more, cross the road more. There's just more of them out there. So it is something we're working on right now. I don't have as much to say about what we're doing on that now. We have a research project that's being run by the DOT, but in partner with Game Fish and Parks and law enforcement and others to find out how we can mitigate these issues before they become more of a major problem. There's no deliverables on that to give feedback on really at this point. It's supposed to be completed later this year in the fall though, so maybe at a later webinar, maybe I can discuss some of those issues with what we've come up with and maybe any improvements we see. And with that, I will turn it back over to Jamie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dustin. We really appreciate you talking about those two very important modes. And we would be glad to have another presentation later on in the year with the outcomes of that project. Our next presenter comes to us from the New York State Police. Bernie Kennett is a retired technical sergeant. He retired in 2020 from the New York State Police, where he served in that capacity for approximately 18 years. And during that time, part of his duties included educational outreach to the agricultural and Amish communities. Since his retirement, he continues to conduct agricultural safety and outreach as a contract instructor for the New York Center for Agricultural Medicine and Health, and as a technical advisor to the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Council. He owns agricultural land in central New York, where he operates his own agricultural equipment. He also works part-time on a local dairy farm and at a custom hay growing operation, and regularly operates farm equipment on the road and in the field. And we're excited to now turn it over to Bernie to talk a little bit about what they're doing in New York. Bernie?
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Beautiful. Okay, I don't have slide capability here, so Dana's going to pop them forward for me. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'm a technical advisor for the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee, which is the state highway safety office for New York. Main job that we have there is to coordinate statewide safety efforts and administer grant programs. Our grant programs are for highway enforcement. It's the evil side of the equation, but in order to keep people well behaved and change behaviors, we have to issue tickets, and the fear of the points and the fines will very often make us behave out there. We also have grants for child seat education and then a general traffic type education slush fund that covers things such as the slow moving vehicle program. So if we look at the next slide, basically we're data driven. We look at our data, we see where our problem areas are, and we devise an educational program in that area through outreach groups, through police, other instructors, and then we do highway safety enforcement. So that's essentially how it works. And then we go back through and look at the data. Our slow moving vehicle efforts, which has been taking place at the Capital Region State at the administration in DMV and Albany, is gathering data. So we're looking at the Amish and Mennonite type crashes. Our Amish and Mennonite community typically use horse-drawn buggies as conveyances, both for general transportation and as farm equipment. And then we have the farm and agricultural group. We're making some updates to our crash reporting so we can further define these types of crashes. And we're looking forward to adding other categories for the animal-drawn vehicles, the low-speed vehicles, and the low-speed vehicle trucks, as we have some new low speeds, things that we're now legalizing in New York. We currently have the capability to look at farm and ag type crashes and look at those vehicle groups specifically as listed on the accident report. So if we peek at the next slide. There we go. Here's one of our most recent endeavors at the GTSC, working with the New York State Sheriff's Association. They just published version 3. It's a ring binder. It's the guide to sharing the road for slow-moving vehicles. It also covers animal-drawn vehicles. It's an educational handout that's for the farmer, for the Amish Mennonite community, and also the general motoring public. It's made available to our school resource officers when they do safe driving programs in the schools. And it's also made available to the groups that do driving for our adult drivers. It's a nice little publication, so it covers everybody, and it's very interesting. If we look at our next slide, okay, there's a nice little section here that talks about the main problem we have was the closure time issue. And a lot of our crashes, about 70% are rear end crashes, and it's the closing speed issue, the differential in speed. They say on average it takes someone about 4 to 7 seconds to realize they got a text, open the phone, look at the text, and see if it's something they want to process. And we talk to people about this issue here, that if you're doing that and you're giving up 4 to 7 seconds driving down the roadway, you're immediately at the back door of one of these vehicles, and you have to rapidly decide what you're going to do to react to that problem. And that gets a lot of people's attention right there. We talk about this issue on a horizontal curve issue and a vertical curve issue, because a lot of our rural roads, we have the hills and the sharp curves. The pamphlet addresses the laws relative to the requirements for the farm equipment and the animal-drawn vehicles on the highway. We list some safety tips about how to operate with these people on the roadway, what to look for, times of day, weather conditions, the fact that the horses are not a motor vehicle. Sometimes they will have a mind of their own. Lighting equipment's reflectivity. New York honors the vehicles, the farm tractors that go above 25 miles an hour now. So we had a big educational push several years ago with the speed indicator symbols and what that number next to the slow moving vehicle means to the motoring public and also to the user, because there's some requirements there that they can and cannot do. Visibility issues, our rural roads, very often the brush is not maintained well. There's no street lights, again, curves and hills, and the issues to deal with and the requirements in the event of inclement weather, whether it be rain, snow, or foggy weather, and the lighting requirements there. Again, we talk about the seeing hazards and the closure times for the regular motor vehicle driver. So it's a nice little pamphlet we get out there that fits for everybody. Our next slide talks about some of our slow moving vehicle efforts and our educational efforts we've done. I just want to emphasize a little something. Right now, we're dealing with some bovine pneumonia issues in New York State. We're losing beef cattle and dairy cattle, and we also have some avian bird flu issues. And a lot of the efforts we've done in the past is we would literally show up at a farm and cold call. Other parts of the country, they're dealing with it. We just heard about it in Nebraska. So, keep that in mind when you make a visit to a farm where we used to go up and walk into the barn, feeding time or milking time. I would be doing anything from the driveway to the machinery shed or catch them at the mailbox or whatever. So that's something to be very conscious. And the guys just aren't getting out like they used to because of that, because of what they track on their boots. And they may be picked up and brought back to a neighbor's farm. So we'll do PowerPoint presentations to the cooperative extensions, the 4-H programs. Some of our schools still have an ag program. We'll do that. We'll do tabletop appearances if we can get in a state fair, a county fair. A local farm dealership is very good about letting us come in every year when they have their annual customer appreciation days. Press events, we'll do something with the Governor's Traffic Safety Council. Oneida County Sheriff Rob Mashel is very good. He'll do a kickoff here in another couple weeks, again, relative to the planning season. It's gearing up really nicely right here now for us. We do stuff, outreach for the Amish and Mennonite groups. Here where I am, our Amish will drive just the horse and buggies. You go to Western New York, both groups will drive the horse and buggies. If you have any in your neighborhood, they're a little different to deal with. A lot of stuff is coordinated through the bishops. You may have the capability of having an elder that will talk to you and will take things to the bishops. Depending on which community, some of the bishops do not want us, the English, the locals, to know who the bishop is because he gets overrun with complaints relative to horse manure and issues like that. He does not want to deal with that. They're very good at dealing with male to male. We have had issues where they would not deal with our female police officers and our female investigators. We had some situations where I had to go out and say, look, if you want your stolen cows back, you have to talk to the female investigator. In a highway safety aspect, they're probably not going to want to talk to a female because there's no direct immediate gain to work with them. A lot of them feel that it's God's way, it's God's will, that if there's going to be a crash, and if we, the English, do what we're supposed to do, they will be okay. They will be safe. A nice workaround we had in Oneida County, we had some nice health nurses. They would go out each year and basically do a head count of the kids that are going to be starting the Amish schools. They would talk about the vaccines and all those things. And the male Amish would send those gals right in to see the mother, obviously. And before that whole interview process was done, the county health nurses were very good about weaseling in some information about highway safety, a recent bad crash. And bottom line is, these moms don't want to lose their kids any more than any other mom. So they did have a nice backdoor effect with us, to get the men to realize that there was a problem out there. We did see some increased lighting. We did see some increased signing and them keeping better clarity and markings up to date with their buggies. So we do a lot with the farm organizations. Very often our different feed suppliers and herbicide suppliers, they'll have training days. They just did one locally for the herbicide and pesticide licenses. They did have speakers there from Cornell that talked about the various bovine flu and the avian, the bovine pneumonia and the avian flu. And Sheriff Mashel went over and he did a segment on the farm equipment. And I reached out to my home troop, and we had people from our commercial vehicle enforcement unit that went over and talked about issues with the farm trucks on the highway. Going back to the Amish and Mennonite, if you can get them to come to an event, it's great. They like to learn. Any document, any piece of paper, every handout I ever gave to them, when you go back to see them 3 years later, they're pulling that out, they're hanging on to that, and they do pass that around. We're finding that if you do an event with them and you got cookies or coffee or something, they seem to turn out a little bit better. They're kind of like cops. If you're going to feed them, we're going to show up. My local town hall, they just had a blood drive that the Amish wanted to do as a give back to the English community. And one of my Amish neighbors, he said that if I feed these guys, they will all come. So other groups that we work with is New York Farm Bureau. We also work with New York Center for Agricultural Medicine and Health and the Northeast Agricultural Safety Coalition. So we partner with all these groups on all these different issues. And you constantly are looking for opportunities to get into one of these programs, be a salesman. Our local high school sells maple syrup. We go buy maple syrup, and I always get in a plug, hey, this is who I am. This is a program we have, And if you want, we can come over and do a demonstration for you. So if we go to the next slide. We also do some slow-moving vehicle educational investments efforts for a law enforcement community. We've hosted programs for them with the PowerPoints, and we review the lighting requirements. What they have to have for lighting for the buggies, what they have to have for the farm equipments. We talk about the turn signals or the hand signals. Any turning maneuver in New York State, you have to signal your turn one way or another. We tell them how to look for the different things in the crash, the skid marks, the shoe marks of the horses. Our horses all run horseshoes, and they will leave marks in the roadway, and they'll leave a skid mark. It'll show you where the impact took place. The same as the steel wheels on the buggies. They will give you an indication where that vehicle was in the roadway. We talk about the concerns at the scene as far as dealing with the Amish and the Mennonite community. They are almost adamant about not using a medevac. Their culture, they just do not want to do that. They refuse to do that. Our first responders, they will put them in a medevac if they feel that's what's needed to save their life. But sometimes our police officers have to kind of get in the middle and explain this to them. The other issue we deal with is if it's a fatality, they want that body home. They want that body home now so they can start their grieving process tonight. In some communities, it's a 3-night event. They definitely do not want it to going to a morgue. They definitely do not want an autopsy being done. In some criminal cases, there has to be an autopsy, and we explain that to them. But we still work with them, and we've allowed them to at least come to the morgue, sit outside so they feel they can maintain vigil. And we let them know that our people and the people at the morgue are going to handle their family members with care. I still have one bishop that'll tell me that they're not going to have an autopsy of their people, and he will fight us over that. And thank God that event has not taken place. We also address with law enforcement the proper charges in the case we have to write tickets. We will write tickets to the farmer. We will write tickets to the buggy owner. If there's a young adult involved, that ticket goes to the parent or the owner of that equipment. And we have had crashes where we write tickets to the car driver and also to the farm tractor because both of them were doing something wrong at that time. Excuse me. And if you're going to work with these communities, whether it be the farmers that run the gas and diesel tractors or the Amish community, it's good to get out and know what they're doing, know what their equipment is. If needed, watch YouTube, see what some of this equipment is, go to the local farm dealership, see what some of the stuff is. They'll fill you out real quick. And if they mention that they just got a new merger to doing hay, and we're thinking a merger is two companies are being sold on the stock exchange, it's a different thing. And once they detect that hesitation, once they detect that we're not really going, we're not understanding what they're talking about, they kind of dismiss us. I kind of have an advantage because I get to drive this equipment at my place and at my friend's place. And I really quickly get that out to them. Some of you folks did that as well today, mentioned that you were still on family farms and running your own businesses. And the quicker you get that out, the more credibility you have. And I think they're much easier to listen to our program. It's not a one stop. It's not a one presentation and you got them hooked. You got to stay after them 2-3 times, some follow-up stuff. And if you're working with the Amish or the Mennonites, they will come back to you for things like, hey, we need help with a cemetery. Where do we go? Hey, we need stuff with dog licensing. Hey, we need stuff with codes. So you will be their go-to, their liaison, if you will, between them and the government. So let's just go to the last slide. Two references that are very, very valuable. The first one is the American Society for Agricultural and Biological Engineers. They're out of Wisconsin. They generate all the standards for the agricultural equipment as far as a slow-moving vehicle sign, where it's placed, the type of reflectivity, the distances, the speed indicator. They generate requirements for animal-drawn vehicles. very sharp people. They will very often tell you what the requirements are, but they will not give you a document unless you buy the document. And if you're working in some of the state programs or some of the cooperative extensions, you may not have that money to do that. So my go-to after that is the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. They publish standards that are identical to American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers for the farm equipment, but they do that for agricultural equipment and construction equipment. They publish some very good documents that show lighting, reflectivity, marking, and exactly where that needs to go. And the nice thing about them is I know they've got the backing of the major equipment manufacturers, whether it be Caterpillar, Case New Holland, John Deere. You know there's a bunch of lawyers that are looking at these documents and they're making sure they're bulletproof prior to publishing that in the event there's a crash. So when people want to have questions, when people have questions about what do I need to mock my vehicle up to make it legal, I send them to the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. So my last slide is my contact information. Please feel to reach out to me. That's my cell phone. That's my email address. If you can't get a hold of me, please reach out to Tony DiGustino right in Albany. He's the program coordinator. And I just want to thank everyone very much today for letting us to take part of this very valuable informational webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. We appreciate you being here today. And I also wanted to let everyone know, Bernie mentioned Tony DiAgostino, who serves as a law enforcement liaison for New York. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that nationally there are law enforcement liaisons in many of the states. They typically are retired law enforcement personnel, and they work for either the State Highway Safety Office or the Governor's Highway Safety Office, whatever it may be called in your state. And so they serve as fantastic resources and help with education and awareness of safety. So if you don't already know if your state has one or haven't already had contact with a law enforcement liaison that may be in your state, please look them up. Fantastic resource, highly recommend. So we do have time for maybe one or two questions. If anyone has a question, please go ahead and throw those into the question and answer pod. We do have some that are coming in right now from Megan, so I'm going to get you queued up here. Our very first one, Megan, for you is that you mentioned bunker gear during your presentation. Could you describe what that is?
Oh, so bunker gear is the protective equipment that firefighters typically wear. So it's heavy and bulky and thick. So definitely some mobility changes for those guys.
Perfect, thank you. And then we have a two-part question that came in. I'll ask the first one and then we'll go back to the next one. It's why do stock trailers usually tip onto their left side?
It has to do a little bit with the way their structure is, with the alleyways and the loading ramps. So they're a little bit heavier, and if they happen to, since they turn wider, sometimes they'll go off the roadway on the right side, and that actually pushes them a little bit to the left, so they fall towards that's where their weight of gravity, their center of gravity is.
And then in regards to that as well, when animals are in a trailer and are biosealed in because they're crossing the border, if those animals are injured, do the first responders just have to leave them in the trailer, or is there something else they can do?
Initially, that they need to stay in the trailer until you've had contact with your state veterinarian's office, and they'll probably liaison to their state USDA representative.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The next question that we have is on UTVs. So Dustin, I don't know if maybe this one will make sense for you. It says, do any of the states require slow moving signs for UTVs? Iowa has a gray area about UTV being required to have slow moving signs, even though the speed limit for an ATV or UTV is 35 miles per hour.
Yeah, I kind of think that is supposed to be required, but I can't guarantee that's accurate.
Jamie, can I jump in for New York?
Absolutely.
The vehicle and traffic law specifically says an ATV does not have to have any of the licensing requirements if it's used exclusively for farm purposes. They don't address the UTV. We have a legal opinion that says a UTV is an ATV if it's used for farm equipment. So we're telling the farmers to, if you're going to use exclusively for agricultural purposes, to put the slow moving vehicle sign on it, operate it the same as you would with a tractor. And that speed limit now is 25 miles an hour on a highway. Even though that machine may be capable of going 45 or 50, if you're using it at 45 miles as a piece of farm equipment with the slow moving vehicle sign, your speed limit is 25 miles an hour.
Perfect. And thank you for providing that additional information as well. It's great to have all these different states on here and get to hear the differences between them, or the similarities even too. Our last question that we're going to be able to take before we wrap up is also for Dustin. And this is for the South Dakota motorcycle crash data. Was there any clustering around the Sturgis event and out-of-state licenses, or a lack of motorcycle endorsement?
I guess I'm not sure what's meant by was there any clustering, like if that's where highest density of crashes is. That's absolutely correct. The Black Hills region is quite a bit larger than just the Sturgis area, but there's a lot of scenic, very curvy roads out there. So not only are the curves an issue, there's a little bit of distraction just because people are looking out in the distance, just because it's such a nice scenic area. And there is, especially during the rally and generally in the summer, there is overrepresentation of out-of-state motorcyclists, and many of them do not have endorsements, and it's kind of hard to do much of anything with that in South Dakota without a state motorcyclists. But yeah, those are major issues, and a lot of those motorcyclists without endorsements are inexperienced, and some of these routes they're taking are very difficult.
Thank you. And I also want to thank Megan. She put in the chat to let you all know that slow moving vehicle signs are required for UTVs in Nebraska as well. So I just want to really quickly wrap up. Thank all of our speakers. Today was full of information, full of a lot of great things on all different spring road users, from our agricultural vehicles to livestock vehicles to horse and buggies to motorcycles and ATVs and UTVs. A lot of great information thrown at you. Please remember to download the PDFs that are in our handout pod, which you can find in the top right-hand corner. We will have an evaluation going out. Again, please fill that out and let us know what other topics you'd like to hear from the center over the next year. So thank you one last time to David Varner, Danielle Bauer-Ferris, Megan Patton-Nygren, Dustin Witt, and Bernie Kennett. We're really grateful that you shared your expertise today, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.